Okay, this is my series on Sandy's on University Avenue in Riverside. It's a restaurant, later turned into a Denny's. It was owned by Denny's when I was there. It wasn't quite as nice, so they didn't want to put the Denny's name on it, and so it was a Sandy's. We at the time we had a bar. I don't think Denny's had many bars at that time, and it was 24 hours breakfast for 24 hours. You could get pancakes anytime. It looked like a regular Denny's. You go in, I think it's maybe 130 people on those soft pews, those padded seats, and they had a counter up front where people could sit individually and order from the waitress and look at the cooks, and we could look out at them and talk to them. Okay, so this is just about some of the people I met there. This first one here is our second one, I guess, is Quinn. He was a cook there. He was a cook the entire time I knew him, and he was from Vietnam. Okay, and very very thin guy, and a little bit shorter than me. Okay, and he would always kind of walk with a limp. Had just a not a real pronounced limp, but you could see it was a limp. And when you'd notice it more when he got busy and started going fast, because he would go kind of go skip on his left leg, skip, and then swing the right leg out. Skip, swing. And so you'd notice it then. And then when he was moving around the kitchen, I don't know if it gave me any pain. He didn't really say much about it. But the thing, it was there. You could tell it was that. He worked all the time. When he left Sandy's, he walked over across the street to the Ramada Inn, and he was a cook there. And he worked all the time. When I met him, he was single, so he didn't really see much reason to stay home. I asked him, I said, well, where'd you pick up your English? He's from Vietnam, and he said, watching TV. And so I don't know, he's a thick accent. Sometimes it'd be a little hard to tell him what he was saying. Like I said, I don't think he ever took a day off. And when he spoke, not only did he have an accent, but he would speak in a hurry, like he was talking like this. He was just kind of always in a hurry, like he had that just really fast metabolism going. I don't really know how old he was. I would say he looked 30, but he could have been 40. He could have been 25. I don't really know. So he seemed older, but it's because maybe his life experience. He was a refugee. He left Vietnam as a refugee. He wasn't able to stay. He said he was an officer. He'd been wounded, took shrapnel on his leg, and that tore it to pieces, and that's why he had his limp. And in the hospital, he realized, hey, I don't have much of a future here. The country's falling apart. They were going to lose the South Vietnam and he would not be in good situation when the North Vietnamese came down. And so he took his chance and left everything behind, family and everything, and got on a transport and got out. He could talk himself into anything. So I could see that, he'd be talking himself into getting onto a transport. Anyway, so he left his home, his family, his culture, language, everything behind him, and he was alone. So he worked and slept, watched his TV, learned his English, but the routine kind of wore down on him. And I worked there 4 years, and he was there the whole time. But his excited, gung-ho, optimistic personality started to fade. And he kind of stopped smiling. He'd be angry a lot, kind of barking at the waitresses and stuff. So he was just working and sleeping, and it just wasn't enough. He needed more. And then he met someone. I don't think she was from Vietnam. I can't remember where she was from. It was an Asian country. I don't remember which one it was. But they got married. They had a couple of kids. They opened up their own little mom and pop fast food places in Hemet, which is a smaller town outside of Riverside. And I think he had high hopes. But it was a humble location. It was a fast food. It wasn't. It was the era of chains. Everyone's opening up McDonald's and Jack in the Box and all these really pristine places. And he basically opened up a hamburger joint. And they were really going out of style. Anyway, so eventually the business failed. And then so did the marriage. I think she was hoping for something a little bit more impressive. And it just didn't work out for him. Anyway, the last time I saw him, he was working over at a Farmer Boys on Pigeon Pass in Moreno Valley. And for those of you that don't know the area, Farmer Boys was it was more of a mom and pop place, and it had a breakfast menu and had hamburgers and stuff. But it was a newer place, and it was a small chain, and it was pristine. But once again, he wasn't owning this one; he was just working there. He was cooking again. And at first, he didn't recognize me. I recognized him right away. He hadn't changed at all. 20 years had passed. He was still the same small, thin guy, dark hair, a little bit of gray in it. But I looked different. He didn't recognize me, and he was still that bone thin person. And then when he did, when I told him who I was, he said, Jim, that's you. He says, you got fat, man. Yeah, I did. But you did. You look great. And I said, how's everything? And then he told me the story. He told me, married kids, lost all, and had a business, a family. And you could tell the regret was there. So he was back to the old plan. Work, sleep. And he just looked at me and said, hey, that's life. That's life. And he smiled. And I don't know. It was a sad smile. But there was a little bit of optimism there. I had hopes that he would get restarted, meet someone else again. Anyway, I said yes. It's life. I understand. We hugged. We promised to keep in touch, but we didn't. No cell phones back then. No email. So we did. I stopped by at Farmer Boys again, and I asked for him, but he wasn't there. A year or two had passed, and not only wasn't there, nobody remembered him at all. Nobody.